I just got a DM on here from a girl that said, yeah, I'm really struggling right now because Spirit Airlines just filed for bankruptcy and I have lost my job. Here's a GoFundMe link. Any donations help. I'm sure they do, sweetheart. I'm sure they do. You know what else would help you? Getting another job.
James Charles is a self-admitted child predator, but I don't think anyone has ever seen evidence as damning as this.
So I want to remind everyone about the time he kidnapped a 14-year-old boy.
I wanted to talk about James Charles. A lot of people are reacting to a video that he recently posted in response to a woman who reached out for support after she lost her job at Spirit Airlines. So I wanted to show you guys this clip, and then I'm going to come back with my commentary.
I just got a DM on here from a girl that said, good morning, James. I know you'll probably never see this, but if you could just take 1 minute to read it, would really mean a lot to me. I'm really struggling right now because Spirit Airlines just filed for bankruptcy and I have lost my job. Here's a GoFundMe link. Any donations help. I'm sure they do, sweetheart. I'm sure they do. You know what else would help you? Getting another job. Try that, because in the time that it took you to copy and paste the same fuck-ass message to myself, who you don't follow, by the way, and probably 100 other influencers and celebrities, you could have applied for 100 other jobs, but you didn't because you're a lazy piece of shit and you're entitled and you think that influencers and celebrities should fund your life for you. Why would I ever help you? You're not a fan. You don't even follow me. You've never supported me. This is your first time DMing. And you think that I'm going to send you money because you lost your job? Welcome to the real world, sweetheart. People lose their jobs every fucking day, and you're white, pretty, and able-bodied. You're in a much better position than a lot of other people out here who are trying much harder to make a better life for themselves. Why would I fucking help you? Aside from that, 17,000 people lost their jobs at Spirit Airlines. Why do you think you need to GoFundMe? I can at least 1% respect the mentality of closed mouths don't get fed, doesn't hurt to try. But honestly, it does hurt to try because now you pissed me off. Okay? I'm not the one. Go find fucking Mr. Reese. This is literally his entire shtick. I'm sure the next YouTube video is literally going to be like, I rehired all 17,000 of the Spirit Airlines employees, and it's going to be the real life Hunger Games. The last one of them to leave the Spirit Airlines plane gets to be the CEO of the new company and gets a house and a car and $10 million. Go find that video to compete in. I'm not helping you. All you did was lost your job. Okay? Welcome to the real world. I can at least understand if you were like, James, I'm a longtime fan. Here's a trillion years of DMs and my support for you. I love you. I'm suffering with a really rare genetic disease that there is no cure for, and I'm trying to raise money for myself and other people that have this. Maybe I would help because I love you and I appreciate you. This bitch, you lost your fucking job? Oh, what are we gonna do? Bang! Gonna do nothing. You know what you need to do? Go find a fucking new one, girl. Into the workplace.
So that was a lot, right? That was a lot. And there's a couple of things we got to talk about here. James Charles, if you guys don't know, got his start by a viral photo shoot that he did where he apparently brought a ring light to his senior day pictures. The thing that stood out about this photo was his brightened highlighter that he had placed on his face that apparently could only have been properly captured on a ring light. This photo, I thought, was atrocious. It's not the best photo in the world. And I think the thing to keep in mind is that at the time, James Charles was copying a Black content creator called Poetic Drugs. I used to follow Poetic Drugs. I used to see their makeup looks all the time. If you look at a lot of James Charles makeup looks, they're literally just him doing Poetic Drugs makeup, right? And at the end of the day, I think that that's something to acknowledge because James Charles got his start copying and stealing from people of color. And sure, maybe he did work very hard and he did, get a lot of stuff. And I do think he did do the hustle. However, I think we got to start there because James Charles, since he was a teenager, has not worked a real job. Now, there are a lot of people talking about how being an influencer isn't a real job. And who knows, maybe I'm biased. It's a lot of work. But it will put you in a position where you are disconnected from what everyone else is doing in terms of work. For me personally, I've been making content online for a very long time. 20 years later, here we are. I'm able to live alone in Los Angeles because I have a YouTube channel, right? Very thankful for that. In that time, I have not worked a 9-to-5 job. James is speaking from a place of ignorance. He doesn't know what it's like to be in this current job market and to try to find a job. James Charles has to continue to make content, be aware of trends, and as long as he keeps doing those things, he's probably going to make money. The other part of this that I found interesting is that James Charles posted this video with the thought that people would see the video and laugh at it, right? Which for me demonstrates a disconnect between how he views his audience and the reality of what his audience is. James Charles was selling makeup to his audience, right? James Charles was using his audience to enrich himself. Clearly, that's as far as his love for his audience extends. And I want to ruin this for some of you guys, but that's true for a lot of content creators, right? Where they only value you as much as you value them financially. And that's kind of why he even went as far as saying, you know, you should have sent me screenshots of your multiple years supporting me. I thought that was weird because I am pretty hesitant to post GoFundMes, fundraisers in general, because I've got a history of seeing some of these things not turning out to be true. And I don't always have the time to do the due diligence, to review everything, to know that I'm actually posting a very real fundraiser for a very real person, right? So a lot of times I won't do it because I don't know what I'm posting. And I want to be very aware of what I'm posting, right? But I do post when I see GoFundMes where I'm like, I can post this to my story, I can repost it to my followers, and it will get views and engagement, right? I've done that quite a few times with people in my feed who I am aware of, who I do know, even as just fellow content creators. And I've done it several times for Palestine. Not as much as I should, but I have done it, right? I think a lot of content creators have to be aware of the power they have over their audience, not just parasocially, but financially, right? James Charles could have tossed this woman what to him was a little bit of money that could have made her entire month. Do I think that he needs to do that? Not necessarily. I really don't. But I do think there's something to be said about him making a video about it. And I do think that almost more than him not reacting to the message shows more about his character than anything else. And what's muy interesante to me about James Charles is James Charles has been called out several times for being a child predator. I'll include a video that goes over some of the accusations that have been rallied against James Charles, and it gives you the impression that if this woman, this apparently beautiful, white, able-bodied woman, was instead a beautiful, white, able-bodied teenage boy, he would have probably been at least willing to give him a place to stay.
James Charles is under a lot of fire right now, so I want to remind everyone about the time he kidnapped a 14-year-old boy. The boy...
So, as many of you already know, James Charles is a self-admitted child predator, but I don't think anyone has ever seen evidence as damning as this. So as you can see in these DMs that have never been released to the public before, James Charles explicitly asks this child, "How old are you?" The child says, 16, don't be mad. James then says, "Still illegal, laugh my ass off." And then they continue to have an extended conversation, exchanging images with one another for several months afterward. It goes on and on and on. And the victim involved with this, who is going to remain anonymous because they want to move on with their life at this point, has told me that they were exchanging inappropriate images, but be surprised. And as if the Instagram DMs were not bad enough, the conversation then moved along to Snapchat, where James used his new house and his money to attempt to entice the child into engaging in a relationship with him. The reason why I decided to share this with you guys today is not because it's the anniversary of Bye Sister, which is actually a complete coincidence. It's because I need you guys to understand who this creature is.
So you have to think about the audacity of this, right? The audacity of being a person who's been accused of predatory behavior towards minors, who says, I'm going to open up my phone and I'm going to directly attack a person who's unemployed, who reached out to me for support, right? And to me, that demonstrates something that a lot of people don't really want to talk about. The fact that cancellation does not exist, that there is no such thing as cancel culture, no matter how many people like Dave Chappelle want to make you feel there is. At the end of the day, James Charles was accused of one of the worst things you could ever be accused of. And he knows so well that it's not going to get to him because of his previous experiences with it. And you could look at our president and see that that's also the case there. That at a certain point, Donald Trump decided there was really no reason to stop doing the things that he was doing because nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen because he has power, he has influence, and he's got the ability to threaten people with that, right? I think this should really be a final nail in the coffin, right? Jeffree Star is a good example of this. Another person from that era who's been called out. Jeffree Star's been called out hella for a lot of shit, right? Even shit that's similar to James Charles, right? He still has a thriving makeup company and career, even as he doubles down as a very confused, cross-dressing MAGA supporter. It's one of those things where I hope at some point people realize with stuff like this that no, you're not actually experiencing cancellation, you're experiencing criticism. And of course, James Charles would go and apologize. And I did think that these apologies were very funny.
I ended up deleting the video that I posted yesterday talking about people who send me GoFundMe links that have never followed, supported, DM me before, just begging for money. And most people were in the video saying it was a valid point, but it definitely started causing some discourse in the comments. And a lot of people were saying it was out of touch and insensitive. They're right. It was a harsh choice of words, not my best video, and I deleted it, but the internet is forever. And now a lot of content creators are using the 5-second clip in the very beginning where I'm like, you're a lazy piece of shit, get a new job, to upload their fake pieces, being like, influencers are all so out of touch. This is so disgusting. You don't know how hard it is in the job market these days. Oh my God, give me a fucking break. I am out of touch, okay? I am never going to be one of those influencers that gets online and pretends to be poor so I can come across as relatable. I think it's tacky, annoying, and insulting to the audience watching, as if you guys are going to be fooled into thinking that. You've been watching me for 10 years now. It's no secret that I have been able to find success doing what I've done. It didn't start that way, though. I started from literally nothing and had a dream for myself and was determined to literally do anything to make it happen. I've been blessed to be able to do that and now call this my full-time job. The reason I made that video yesterday, though, was a lot of people these days do not have the make it work mentality. They have no desire to actually put in the effort to try to fix a problem and get themselves out of a situation. They immediately result in asking for help. And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for help. In my personal opinion, though, it should be a last resort. If you disagree, that's totally fine. I'm not going to apologize for having mine. There's a lot of people responding back to the video being like, oh my gosh, he has no idea how hard the job market is. I've been applying for new jobs for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years now, and I've literally heard back nothing from any of the jobs. I'm sorry that that is happening to people. I know that the job market fucking sucks. I've heard so many horror stories. I can't even imagine what that's like. Those are the people, in my opinion, that are totally valid and asking for help. The person that I made the video about yesterday lost their job last week at Spirit Airlines, along with 17,000 other people. Granted, I don't know this person. Maybe making a GoFundMe link was their last resort. I just personally do not believe that to be the case, because I know for a fact that they sent the same exact DM to hundreds of different influencers and celebrities. This person did not follow me. They have never DM'd me previously. They have never supported me on any social platforms. They have never purchased from Painted. This person was literally just spam copying and pasting this DM to every person that they assumed had money to offer them. And I'm sorry, just because somebody has money does not mean that you're entitled. I'm sorry if that comes across as insensitive or privileged or mean, but welcome to the real world. It's fucking hard out there. Nobody owes anybody anything. The universe will constantly remind you of that, and a little bit of effort goes a really long way sometimes. I stand behind what I said 10 toes down. Instead of spending an hour copying and pasting the same DM to 100 different celebrities or influencers, you could have spent the same amount of time copying and pasting a job application to hundreds of different companies. Put in a little bit of effort. If you want to send the DMs, at least spend 20 seconds before you hit send, customizing it to the person that you're asking for money from, right? Hi, sister. James, I've been watching your YouTube videos since I was a teenager. You taught me how to do makeup and it impacted my life every Friday. I'm in this shitty situation. Do you think that you could help? Probably would have gone a lot further than a generic message. Or instead of copy and pasting the same job application to hundreds of companies, send in 10 job applications to companies that you care about and you could fit in with, and customize your application and your cover letter, letting these recruiters or hiring people know that you're the best candidate and why they should want you on their team. I know putting in the extra work and effort probably feels useless when you know that you're aiming for job applicants, but trust and believe, as somebody who's now on the other side of things, the little bit of extra effort does go a very long way, and taking the easy route is usually never going to work. work. That's my 2 cents. Just a word of advice. You can take it, you can leave it. It's all good. I just want
Leave
to
it.
provide
We're
some more
leaving it.
context on my video yesterday because I do not like how it's being twisted and taken out of context. It was never my intention to undermine anybody who's trying to work and provide a better future for themselves, their family, and their loved ones. I just don't exactly think that that is what this person was trying to do, or at least the right way to go about doing it.
So out of touch, right? Like, oh my gosh. So James Charles is demonstrating in so many different ways just how completely out of touch he really is. And it's interesting because James Charles demonstrates through his description of how to do this that he's never done this, right? It reminds me of when I would have conversations with my parents about finding jobs, and they're like, why don't you just go in and hand in an application? It's like, well, because it's not working like that these days. One of the things that James Charles probably doesn't know is that people are now using job applications to collect data, right? So sending in those 20 or 30 job applications in a day would probably mean that in all reality, she's sending off her job applications to people who are probably not even actually hiring, but are just posting hiring things so they can feed into these data farms, right? And that is a very real thing. That's not a thing I just made up to make an argument. There are a lot of reasons why people don't want to do this and would probably prefer reaching out directly to you. I've sent people money. Now, I know James Charles and I are in very different situations, right? Like, to be transparent with you guys, I am comfortable, but I'm also very working class, right? That's part of why I work as much as I do, as hard as I do. I post as much as I do, because at the end of the day, I am working class. You know, if I don't work, I will not eat. That's the situation I'm in, right? Maybe more comfortable than most, maybe more secure than most, but that's the situation I'm in. Even in my situation, I've sent people money. But there was a time where I saw this video that this trans girl had made about me. She was unhoused and angry with me because I posted pictures and videos of the home that I lived in. Because I just moved into this apartment, and she felt a way about it. Instead of being angry at that girl, I was like, I'm just going to send her some money. And I didn't send her a lot of money. I sent her $50. I know that $50 does a lot. I know it would do a lot for me. I know if someone sent me $50, it would do a lot for me, right? And I know back then I probably needed that $50, but I knew in that moment she needed that $50 more than I did, right? And that I could go a week or two without that $50 in my pocket and probably be okay. But it would change her life in that moment. And I think for me, that's the baffling part. In the time that James Charles made these videos, he could have sent her $100, $200, and that would have been groceries for her. And she would have been very thankful for that. Do you know what she's not going to get by sending in 20, 30, 40 applications a day and not getting hired? That $200 that you could have given her within a couple of minutes. It's such a hyper capitalistic mindset. And James Charles is a great example of this. James Charles wants to sell you on the idea that he worked hard. He wants to sell you on the idea that he came from nothing. But where did he start his career? Mimicking what Black people were doing on the internet, right? So even in that, he didn't start from that. Yeah, he capitalized on it. And yes, he had a white face and was able to get a lot from it. I checked out Poetic Drugs TikTok, and I was shocked that Poetic Drugs has under 1,000 followers on TikTok. That's pretty crazy considering the situation, right? Like, Poetic Drugs was in a situation where they could have definitely made that money. They could have done something with the platform that was handed to James Charles. But James Charles was a white boy. Our society humanizes white boys more. And so he was able to take what Poetic Drugs created and use that as a platform, as a foundation for him to launch a makeup line. James Charles is in a ton of controversies. This is one of many. Even with all of his controversies, he still feels good coming to the internet and speaking the way that he did. What's funny to me about this is he says what you post online will last forever. But what's funny about him saying this is you can tell that he doesn't care about that when it comes to his employment, because he's not in a situation where that would matter. He's not in a situation where it matters that he would say something crazy like what he said about Ebola in Africa on Twitter, because that's not actually going to hurt him. That's not actually going to harm him. At the end of the day, going back to Jeffree Star very briefly, People are shocked that Jeffree Star still has a career, but Jeffree Star and James Charles, they may be gay men with uncomfortable relationships with 15-year-olds, right? But they are gay white men in a capitalist society that gives white men the freedom to abuse. You can go and abuse people, and you can be the president of the United States. That is the world that we live in. That is the hyper-capitalistic world that we live in. Across the country right now, the voting rights of Black people are being taken away so that white people can continue in their delusion of white supremacy, to believe that their whiteness gives them the ability to be authorities in every room they enter into. And that's what's beneath James Charles as a person who has no business giving anybody job advice, giving people job advice. Very few people are comfortable posting GoFundMes and asking other people for money. He kept going back to this point about her not being a follower of his. He wants her to kiss the ring, bow down to him, worship him, and tell him how much he's inspired her. And maybe then he'll give her some money. That is such a terrible attitude. That is such a terrible, hyper-capitalistic attitude. What's sad to me about this is people like James Charles do not deserve the platforms that they have, but they will continue to have the platforms they have. And they will continue to be seen, even through their cruelty, as having a closer proximity to humanity than any person of color. I want people to stop being shocked by James Charles having audacity. He lives in a culture that justifies and validates that audacity, and he has no reason to stop doing what he's doing. So, on that note, I think I've said what I want to say. I want to know what you guys have to say about this, so please give me your thoughts in the comment box below. As per usual, I want you to stay hot and introspective, and always remember and never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye.